Welcome to Uncarcerated. I'm Lee Scott. Thank you for joining us. Each and every week we delve into individuals who are released from various institutions, jails, prisons, mental health facilities. We take a look at the things that got them there and their journey into freedom, the pitfalls, the triumphs, the challenges. I think a lot of times, I think Facebook is really a good example of how we love rags to riches. We like the stories of triumph or tragedy. We just don't like the in-between messy stuff. You know, I think that it's easy to swallow for us that somebody maybe makes a mistake, but it happens again. A lot of us start to get judgmental, wonder if somebody's trying. We don't know all the things that go on while somebody's incarcerated or in a mental health facility or dealing with trauma in their life that makes things difficult to quote-unquote get it. And I think that, you know, Facebook is a really good example of people post, hey, I got this new job, heart, 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 heart. Oh, somebody died, sad emoji, sad emoji, sad emoji. Hey, you post something that's uncomfortable, and all of a sudden, people back away from that. This show's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be messy. It's going to cause you to question how you view things. Are you looking at people with open minds, an open heart? Do you judge people and their value based on how quickly they're able to overcome, how they're able to achieve? Do you determine people's success based on how big their house is or how much money they have? Or do you determine what kind of perseverance they're able to have in the face of great odds? Look no further than our prison industry to sort of illustrate that for us. Shocking report last year by the Department of Justice on how the Massachusetts Department of Correction treats the mentally ill in its custody. It opened the door on that nightmare and gave a voice to the voiceless. And this is just a small example. Massachusetts have the fourth highest suicide rate in prison in the nation. The solution there won't be easy. But what's being done? Are we isolating people? Are we medicating them, over-medicating, under-medicating? Do we have underpaid staff that are treating people punitively when we should be treating people's emotional and mental health issues? So it's an interesting article, the Boston Globe. You can look it up on the marshallproject.org. That's the marshallproject.org. That's going to be a big thing that we discuss tonight with my guest. It's going to be a two-part series. We're going to talk to my friend Daniel about his experiences leading up to going to jail and prison for the first time, Florida's juvenile facilities, and then part two, we'll look at his journey home. But it gets pretty emotional. It gets pretty raw. We try to take a pause and take a breath to explain some of the ins and outs. Sometimes this show can be a little inside baseball because, you know, we want to make sure that if you haven't been behind that wall, if you haven't had that door lock on you, if you haven't had those handcuffs on you, even if you have a friend or a family member, even if you're empathetic to this situation, you donate time and money to criminal justice reform, unless you've been there, it's very difficult to understand the constant stress and constant trauma. And then when you have a mental health problem, where the system breaks down. Most of our incarcerated individuals have mental health issues, and they are going untreated and undealt with. And that's, you know, that's why a lot of people use drugs and alcohol, get into bad relationships. That's sort of, we've got some shitty survival skills, and you'll hear me talk a lot about that on this show. We're hoping this show is cathartic for the guest, as well as informative for you. So I hope you enjoy this next hour with our friend Daniel here on Uncarcerated.
Breaking the law, we used to break the law. Breaking the law, we used to break the law. Breaking the law, we used to break the law. Breaking the law, we used to break the law. I got no money, not a penny in the bank. I got no freedom, spend my whole life, that's it.
And welcome to another episode of Uncarcerated. I'm Lee Scott. I'm your host. Each week on Uncarcerated, we take a look at individuals who are coming home from various institutions, mental health, jail, prisons. Eventually, we'll start looking at freedom and being re-entered, rebirthed into society from any number of things that we feel incarcerated from. Bad marriages, long illnesses. I think a lot of people throughout the past year that have been in lockdown or quarantine or have lost family members have felt incarcerated to a certain extent. So we'll eventually extend those conversations to those types of things and try to see what the human experience is in re-entering and being brave enough to put yourself back out for a new job, new relationship, new career. But early on in the show, I want to really focus on our criminal justice system. I want to take a look at rehumanizing people. I don't want to use the term inmate or convict on these shows. These are human beings who made mistakes. We've got a seriously faulty criminal justice system that locks up more people per capita than any country in the world. We're supposed to be the freest country in the world, yet we lock up more people per capita than China. I mentioned on a previous episode that if you ranked our states as countries, the leading incarcerator in the world would be the United States, and then the next 5 countries before El Salvador would be states: Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Texas, Ohio. So we've got a serious problem, and it's a problem on the front end. Why are so many people going? We have mental health gaps. We have a war on drugs, a war on poverty that doesn't treat people like human beings. Obviously, an unfair playing field. People are set at a disadvantage and then use poor survival skills that get us into addiction, theft, drug sales, bad relationships, domestic issues. So on the front end, in our social system, our social structure, our criminal justice system, we're putting people at a disadvantage. Then we're just locking them up. And then the recidivism rate is off the charts. And that's going to be the primary focus of this show is, for a few minutes, we want to get to know somebody. How did you get wrapped up in this, like, La Brea tar pit of the criminal justice system? It's like sticky. You can't even get it off you. And then the main focus is, what did it look like upon your arrival home? And I'm really, really lucky tonight for a couple of reasons. One, I've got a brother to me in the room with me. And the other reason is I've got somebody in the room with me for the first time. This show has been interviews over the phone up until this point, but I'm lucky enough to have one of my best friends, Daniel's, here with me tonight. Daniel, what's up?
How are you, brother? Good to be here.
I'm glad you're here, man.
I think what you're doing here is awesome, too, by the way. It's a high time that somebody has done something like this to really kind of take a look at the realness of it and the individual situations and try and find a pattern here, which obviously the criminal justice system, I'm not placing any blame or anything, but we know that, that is a good place to start. That's the common denominators. Anybody who gets in trouble, that's where they're going. So we need to fix that before we can start fixing individuals, obviously.
So Daniel and I were together. Daniel and I were together for almost 3 years at the same place in Florida. So I want to hit the rewind button. Daniel, where did you grow up?
I was born in Connecticut, raised in New Hampshire, and my family all pretty much at once decided to move down to Florida, and I was 12 at the time. We moved down to Florida, me and my mother, her husband, and my little sister's father. We all stayed at my uncle's house for a little bit until my mom could get, us out on our own. Initially, my sister's father was a very negative influence, wrapped up in drugs. He was actually in New Hampshire where they met because he was running from, some stuff out of Georgia. But anyways, my mom was into drugs as well, so they were present in my upbringing, in my childhood, and also like me and my brother were both kind of treated as the redheaded stepchildren, no pun intended, but I mean that's really kind of the role that we played. I remember I was like 14, I think, and they left us home, me and my brother, home, and took my sister to Disney and to Universal Studios, and just that, I remember that was one of the first memories as a kid where like I just got the feeling like I'm not wanted here, and this is this is my home, and it played on me. I never really felt home anywhere, so I was out. I didn't even graduate high school. I got my GED and took the HSCT in a juvenile program, so the problem started really early. I was leaving home. I was doing drugs. I was drinking at an early age, 15, 16. I went to my first juvenile program. I went to actually 2 juvenile programs before the age of 18. And when I turned 18, in one of the programs, I was released shortly after. But I was given a high school diploma when I left there. So it was basically, you're done with the juvenile system. Hope you know what you're doing. But I wasn't really taught any skill sets. I wasn't taught any way to provide for myself. I was just, put in school and made to get, my degree, and that was it. So I get out of juvenile program. I'm 18, and I may be out for not even a full year, and I get in trouble. And I spend the next 9 months in the county jail, and I was sentenced to prison for the first time for 3.5 years.
All right, so I want to take a pause there because there's a couple of really key points that you hit on that I want to dive deeper into. So we've gotten up through your childhood, moving from Connecticut down to Florida at the age of 12. That is a big enough impact on anybody that's got a normal, stable home life. Ripped away from your childhood friends, sent down to Florida, which is a completely different place than anywhere else. I mean, it's, this place is legendary for I threw an alligator on meth inside a Wendy's car drive-through. It's just crazy. And so you're plunked down here. Add on top of that there's drugs and alcohol and some instability at home. And you hit on this word home. You never felt like you had a home. And I'm imagining that the warm blanket of drugs and alcohol, or, you probably, if I'm guessing correctly, have an overdeveloped sense of humor, adaptation, the ability to go from one group in the hood to another group of skaters to another group of people and kind of blend in, finding your family everywhere and nowhere, finding your home everywhere and nowhere all at once. And I just wanted you to maybe expand on that and it sort of explain what that feeling is like of never really feeling like you had a family or a home.
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. And
thank you. I'm really good at stuff like that, so thank you.
Yeah, it was rough, and I would just want to say this: I'm coming from a place where I know what that feeling is now, so I can look at it subjectively because but it was odd. I get out of school and, you get out of school and you're supposed to go home, and I dreaded it. I didn't, I dreaded getting off of the bus and going home, and I was there as little as I could be. I stayed with friends more often than I stayed at my house. I never wanted to be there because I felt like I wasn't wanted there. And why would I want to be in a place where I feel unwanted? It's just not a good feeling.
So you and I took different paths to the criminal justice system.
Your own car.
Yes, I huffed duster and stole my own car. This happens to everybody, really. So, but I had a similar experience in my childhood in that the divorce of my parents affected me at 13, 14, 15. I never felt home. I feel alone in large crowds. I have sort of that fish out of water feeling, but I managed. I was a young single father at 18, and that probably saved me from getting in trouble because, for the next 15 years or so, I just had this tremendous uber responsibility. When I look back on my life, though, I think I was white knuckling it often. Thinking that the world was going to fall apart, just like my parents' marriage fell apart when I was a kid and I couldn't save it. That's what's going to happen if I don't save the relationship I'm in, the kids, everything around me. And eventually my wife passed away, and the world did fall apart for me. And I get in trouble, and I find myself with you in prison in Florida. And I remember the feeling. I was gone for 5 years, and I remember coming home, and my first experience, my second day out, I go to Target, and you met me up at Target, and you looked at me like, dude, take a deep breath. I was just completely overwhelmed. I didn't know what size pants I wore anymore. I didn't know how to shop. I just didn't know how to do anything. I was only gone for 5 years. Imagine people that are gone for 15, 20 years, But the reason I tell you that is because I went from Gainesville to California and California to Indiana because I wanted to be in a relationship, and I had I had a house in Indiana with my son, who's 19. You know, he's like a feral child. You know what I mean? He's like, "What's up, man? I just smoke weed. Leave me alone, pops." So that's my house. And then my girlfriend and I have another house. Neither house was mine. And that idea that I've never had a home, I think, really resonated with me in that I never really felt like this was my place. Like everything else was somewhere else, and I just felt very unsafe. And I think that lack of safety, that PTSD that relates to that, where do you end up when you feel completely alone? You end up in the only place where you always feel alone, and that's prison.
Like 14 or 15, and I had a friend of mine over. Me, my brother, and a friend of mine were sitting in the room. We were playing video games, doing something, just hanging out, just being kids. And the door busts open, and it's my sister's dad, and he starts screaming at us, "Where's my Coke?" And me and my brother look at each other. We're like, "What?" He's like, "You fuckers are gonna give me my Coke, or I'm gonna beat the shit out of you." Like, left it in his pants pockets and threw him in the fucking washing machine.
And for the listeners, you mean cocaine, correct?
Yes, absolutely, 100% cocaine.
100% pharmaceutical grade cocaine.
And he left him in his pockets, put him in the washer. Never came, never apologized, never even. There was no, "Hey guys, listen." There was nothing.
Sorry about the whole cocaine thing. Yeah.
In hindsight, I don't know how the fuck you apologize for that, anyways. But still saying something. "Hey, dudes, I'm not gonna kick your guys' ass." Something. I don't know. That was, and like I said, it was just not a good place for me to be, regardless.
So when you get to you get out at 18 from juvie, just briefly, because I definitely want to talk about your experiences when you got home, but I really got to know, because I've only heard war stories, Daniel. Please, for the listener, for somebody who, we have so many incarcerated Americans that just about everybody listening is going to know someone or be related to someone that has had this experience. So I think the experience of and the perception of being incarcerated, I think it's starting to soften. And that's what I would like this show to do, is to sort of humanize it. But the only way to do that is to expose the raw nerve that is this traumatic experience. You go away, they lock a door, your friends and family put money on your commissary, they spend thousands on the phone. If you're lucky, they visit, or they don't, and they're completely
in a financial position, especially if kids that are there aren't even in a financial position to send money like that. So it's not, you got to think these kids aren't coming from white collar homes, they're coming from blue collar homes at best. It doesn't have the extra money to send you $100 a week so that you can eat food that's edible,
Right. So, and I think that's, I want to touch on that, but what I was trying to get to is that when that door locks, you kind of know, well, I've got to call or I can't. I've got to put commissary on or I can't afford it. I have to visit or I can't get down there. You know the mechanics of that. What people don't know, even the people related to us don't know, is the trauma that you experience on a daily basis in jail and prison. Even if you make it okay for yourself and it's not full of fights and gangs, it's still, you're constantly terrorized about, is this guard going to do this? Is my bunkie going to flip out? Am I ever going to go home? What happens if someone dies? That's how you live 24 hours a day. That's serious PTSD. So the one thing that I have never been exposed to, but I've heard war stories of, is the juvenile facilities in the state of Florida. I've heard them referred to as gladiator camps. I've heard that the corrections officers bet on these kids fighting. I've heard them setting each other on fire. So can you tell us what that experience was like, Daniel?
It's honestly, I'm a bit jaded. I have been in that situation or that environment as a kid, not just once but twice, and it's not, for the average person, it's a horror, I would think. Like I said, I'm a bit numb to it just because I was familiar with it, but most people aren't, and that's the sad realistic view, is that it is a horror. It's a nightmare as a kid. If you don't know how to fight or defend yourself, one of two things are going to happen. You're going to learn, or you are going to be a victim. and that means your food is going to get taken. You are going to get constantly harassed, bullied, teased, yeah, all kinds.
And is there anybody there? Is there
way.
anybody to protect you?
The people that are supposed to be are. It's almost laughable to them. Let's take this kid over here who beats people up from those dorms and put him against this kid over here, and I like this kid. You know what I mean? Like that's a real thing. That is something that happens. Do not kid yourself. There are guards that set up fights and bet on it, and the kid that loses or gets beat up bad enough, he gets thrown in a hole until his licks heal, and then he's let out because guess what? There's no proof. You're in confinement. You're not allowed to use the phone, so you can't call your mom or you can tell them about this.
And often there isn't anyone to call anyway.
If you're lucky. That's if you're lucky.
One of the things that I found astounding when I got to Lake Butler, which is the reception center here in Florida, you go from county jail, you go to Lake Butler. There's 3 of them now, but it used to only be Lake Butler, the regional medical center, the intake center. Now they have Central Florida and they have South Florida, and I think they have one in North Florida. So there may be 4 reception centers now, if I'm not mistaken. But it used to just be Lake Butler. If you went to prison in Florida, everybody went through Lake Butler. They called it the Wild Wild West because it was just insane there. They had a couple of guards throughout the 70s and 80s that were killing people, and they would bury their bodies straight up and down in the ground so that when feds would come in and look for missing people, they couldn't find them because they would be running the sonar detector over and they couldn't find where the graves were. It took John Stossel in 2020 to investigate to eventually get the feds here.
Boot Hill. It is an actual spot. All this is actual,
right.
Actual information. This isn't just...
Yeah. So one of the things I was astounded at when I got to Lake Butler is
in Butler they have a jar. It is a jar full of teeth.
Yeah.
It is a jar full of teeth that they will show you and they will tell you, we take these. These are our teeth, and they will knock your teeth out and put them in that jar.
Yep. And there's you can see brick walls where there's holes in the brick walls where they make people stand there with their nose holding a quarter in the brick wall for so long that it's left indentations. Rats in the kitchen. It's just, and now they have all of the people with terminal illnesses and lifers there as well. So you're coming into prison for the first time. Maybe you've got 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You coming in with people who haven't been classified yet. We touched on this on an earlier episode. People that are there for 10, 15, 20 years. Your bunkie may be a murderer.
Rape,
and it's
murder,
extremely dangerous situation to be in.
Insanely violent crimes that you are just, the guy that stole your own car.
Right.
That are sitting next to you, and you're like, where
am
I?
How did I get here? And out of all those horrifying situations, the thing that I was astounded at most, Daniel, was this idea of disappearing people. The idea that I'm a guard, you don't have family to call. If you had family and loved ones, you would have had a lawyer. You wouldn't be here anyway. So the chances are you don't have enough support for me to torment you. I can make your life a living hell. And I saw some corrections officers get verbal with it and say, I will make you disappear. I'm wondering if, what I saw at Lake Butler and then the prisons I was at afterwards, how comparable is that to the daily trauma that you saw at the juvenile facilities? I mean, I've heard that it's just way worse.
Well, the juvenile system is a lot more violent. I will say that is that the fights there, and they used to have Saturday night fights where it was you were fighting. Guess what? All the doors are open. You are going to fight, or somebody's going to come in your room and just tee off on you, and it's not an option. So you got to fight. You have to defend yourself. That's the name of the game. That is the beast.
Right? So you're there for a year or two, and then they just go, okay, go now. There's no counseling, there's no education, there's no mental health.
Sure, they have these, school programs, and sure they have a counselor. This counselor's caseload is so full, and they're trying to get through each and every one of these people that you get maybe 2 minutes, and they're going to ask you 3 questions. If you go to say something, they'll say, hey, put in a request, and boom, you're out the door. You can't object. You object, boom, you're going to get your ass kicked by the guard standing right outside. You can't even, hey, wait, I want to talk. There's none of that. Put it in writing and send me a request, and we'll talk about it, which they get denied, and they get thrown away.
So the request system for the listeners, and as our guests and I are talking, a lot of this stuff just seems super familiar. So I want to take time. I don't want to interrupt our guests, but I want to take time to explain for the listeners the request system. The request system in the Department of Corrections is a way to put you off. You have nothing but time. Now, in your mind, You have legal work you need to get done. You're trying to get a GED. You're trying to get a college education. You're trying to get someone on your visitors list. You're on a timeline. To them, they think you have 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. I'm overworked, underpaid. I've got a caseload with 80 guys on it. So put in a request. Those requests go into the circular file, the trash can. You never see it. They're trained to always say no. They never know the answer to anything ever. So you're never able to get anything done. Now, I dealt with that as an adult who had a family and a career. I can only imagine what it's like when you're still a child. You're 18 years old. You're dependent. Now you're dependent on the system who you've gone from your home life, which didn't care about you, and now this system that doesn't care about you. So, just they release you from this, Daniel. You get nothing done while you're there. It probably made you more terrified, added to your PTSD, and obviously, evidence
very
angry. Yeah, and so you're only out for a year, and then you're back in county. What happened that landed you your first prison charge?
Well, I didn't have, like I said, I didn't have any place to really go. My mom, her husband at the time, allowed me to use the address that they had so that I would be released, but I wasn't allowed to stay there. So I didn't have anywhere to stay. I was staying with friends if I was lucky, and I met some guys on the street. Literally, this cat named Zach and another kid named Cody. And
always a Zach and a Cody.
It's damn Zach.
Every fucking time.
So you meet somebody named Zach, just nice to meet you, how do you do, and then run, because you're going to jail. At least I am now. But I didn't have anywhere to go, and this kid had a house, and his mom was heavily into drugs. She did not care who was coming and going or whatever, and so I ended up hanging out with these guys. I'd known them for like 2 or 3 days, and I get in the car, and the next thing I know, Cody's going through this dude's front door, like walking into this guy's house. I'm sitting in the car with Zach, and I'm like, I'm kind of freaking out, like, what the fuck? And I hear some shit going on. I never went in the house. I was charged with burglary of an occupied dwelling, and I was sentenced to 3.5, almost 4 years of prison. It's my very first, adult offense. I had my juvenile record expunged or sealed because I went and completed the program. So they didn't charge me with any of my juvenile stuff, because when you're adult, they can't really bring up your juvenile shit unless it's in a crime pertaining from one to the other. So I was sentenced to almost 4 years, and my very first day at Butler West, I had been at Butler for 4 days, and they sent me, 5 days, and they sent me over to the West unit. And very first day there, I'm walking in the dorm, and I hear these two guys arguing, and one of them starts to run, and the other one is chasing him with a belt and 5 locks on it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, the dude didn't speak any English. He was screaming at him in Spanish. I caught like half of it, but it was apparently the dude had tried to rape him, and he went around and got all of his buddies' locks and beat this dude's head in. Like,
wow.
As the guy's running, he grabs a mattress. He's trying to cover himself with it, and he's just swinging around. And he hits him as he's coming around trying to get to the officer station. He hits him into the shower, and I didn't see the hits, but I saw the swings, and I knew enough to know that those 5 locks weren't being nice. They're not forgiving. And that was my very, very first like 5 minutes into the dorm at Butler.
At this point, you've been in the juvenile facility, so you use the word numb, and I would imagine that seeing this type of violence, you're numb to it. And so I wanted to give you my first experience with that. I had been in fights as a kid, just like everybody has. I've seen fights in bars, and your normal human instinct is, at least for me, is compassion or empathy. You want to dive in, and if somebody's getting just beat up, you want to pull somebody off of someone. You want to try to help somebody. So I go to Lake Butler. I'm there for 5 weeks. Everybody's off to their own camp, and I stayed there for almost 5 weeks. So I go in and I do all my testing, and the lady sits me down, and she says, well, you got perfect scores, 12.9s all the way down, and we need educators. I can't tell you where you're going, but I can tell, you can tell me where you don't want to go. And in Florida, unlike other states, they try to send you as far away from your family as possible. It's a way to punish you. It's a way to keep the money in the system. Right. It's a way to get, travel costs more. It's the whole thing is a giant scam to make money and to hurt you. It's punitive. That's what the whole deal is. So she said, where do you not want to go? And I said, well, I've heard I don't want to go to Columbia and I don't want to go to ACI. So I get on a bus. There's 3 sets of people on the bus: Jackson, Graceville, and ACI. Now, Graceville is a private prison. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to Graceville. This is great. They got ESPN. It's got air conditioning. This is going to be fine. I'll just make it through my time and go home. They get all the way to the Graceville. They don't call my name. They turn the bus back around and take me to ACI. Little did I know that when you tell them where you don't want to go, that's exactly where they send you. So I get to ACI, and as soon as I get off the bus, the CO, big, huge guy, about 6'4", 320, looks at everybody there and he goes, well, you got 3 choices, man. You can fuck, fight, or check in. And I'm like, fuck? I don't want to do any of those other things. So I had to fight one time in the idle dorm before you get moved to your regular camp. I had a guy that kept coming to sit on my bed. And after 3 or 4 days, I asked him, hey, this is because your little area, your little bunk area is your only area in your entire life. That's it. And I, asked him, I was like, dude, you can't just be sitting on my bed. And we ended up fighting over it. After that, I never really got messed with. But I get over to my main dorm, and the first guy that starts talking to me is this young African-American kid. He's probably like 24, 25. And he's into sports, and we're watching the NFL, and he could tell I knew a lot about sports. So we kind of, started talking, and we talked for a couple days about it. His name was DB. Seemed like a nice guy. Now, I'm up on a top bunk, and they've got single bunks in the center area. And I see him every day. He goes and sits on this real gay guy's bed, And they sit and they talk for hours. And I don't know all these little games that people play. I've had no experience with any of this. I have no idea what's going on. I'm like, oh, he's just friends with the gay guy. That's cool. He seems open-minded, So I hear one day this gay dude starts screaming, no, David, no. That's his name, David, DB. They call him David. Or they call him DB, but his name is David. No. And he takes his radio, smashes it on the floor, picks up his lock, and just starts beating the shit out of this poor gay kid. Just beating him to death, And I'm having to sit there frozen. And I just remember thinking it was my first time in my life that, I had to, watch something horrible happen and do nothing about it. I just felt completely paralyzed. And it still sticks with me to this day. It's, super traumatic,
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I understand.
And we just chalk it up to, oh, this is just normal, everyday shit. But it's not normal.
But, yeah, and it's not. And it's not okay that you're subjected to that, especially the way that there's no differentiating. You're a criminal no matter what crime that you did. Well, I do think that there is a difference. I think there's a difference between somebody who did a crime
sexual crime or violence,
duster,
right.
And I stole my own car, or hey, this dude just raped 10 kids. There's a big difference in that, and I feel like that needs to be addressed, and there needs to be some kind of separation. And I think that is another reason why the violence is so high. Because you have these people who are completely comfortable doing these heinous things to another human being, and they're put in with somebody who is wow, the only thing that they're thinking during this is why can't I stop this?
Right. Those groups of people shouldn't be together.
Right. They
right.
should be completely separated, but that's not.
So your first trip through Lake Butler, and you're doing a 3-year prison bid. What was your family support like that at that point? And if you didn't have a lot of family support, can you explain what you have to do financially? I mean, did you have to find a hustle? Did you have to, that's the thing in prison is if you don't have family support, there's barely enough food to eat. If you want to have a snack at night, if you want to have hygiene products, you've got to figure out a way to do those things. So explain, a couple of your key experiences and how you survived those few years.
I was lucky. I was sent to Madison, which, it's not a great camp, and none of them are. But as far as on the violent scale, it wasn't top tier. There was still a lot of violence, obviously, but it wasn't any place like, FSP or anything like that. FSP is Florida State Prison. It's a very well-known prison. You can Google it. Movies were made there. But that was one of the roughest prisons there is. It's just part of that whole Boot Hill, people disappearing.
Right, Rayford, the triangle.
Rayford, the Iron Triangle. So, anyways, I was sent to Madison, and I I could count on one letter from my grandmother a year. Every year for 3 years straight, I would get one letter, and that was on my birthday. My mom, she would write once or twice a year. I never got mail. As far as like getting commissary, I think in the 3 years I was there, I maybe got money 4 times, and it was randomly. Somebody felt bad or they were thinking about it, and they had a couple extra bucks, and they sent it to me. But like I had to get a hustle. I was putting laundry, which is.
But before you get to your hustle, Daniel, how did it make you feel?
It sucked. It was
emotionally, because didn't part of you like you want to forgive people and understand and not be bitter, and at the end of the day you lie your head down at night and you go, well, I put myself here, my family's just trying to survive. That's part of you, but part of you feels hurt and let down.
Oh, absolutely. There's plenty of times where I just I felt like complete shit. What is wrong with me? Like, was I that bad of a person that I'm not worth that to anyone? I was that shitty, and honestly, we're all,
yes, you are.
I was.
You are that shitty.
I am.
You're the worst person I know.
WPIK, baby. But no, and it does something to you when they call mail every day, and you don't get a letter. You don't hear from anybody, and not just that, but it sets a tone for other people's watching. Nobody cares about this dude. This dude's, and it can make you a victim. People know that you're desperate. So you just kind of have to, be real careful. And like they said, you got to find a hustle. And to get to my hustle, I was putting laundry, and I didn't really know much about the hustle game. And I'd been in laundry for like 2 weeks, and a guy from my dorm who had been in laundry before, but was not anymore. He was working outside the gate on the side of the road picking up trash. And he said, "Man, where's your money?" And I was like, "Dude, I don't have people. I don't."
Yeah.
He's like, "You're in fucking laundry, man." I was like, "What?" I didn't even know. He's like, "Dude, listen, here's what you got to do." And apparently, like that dorm that I was put in, they didn't have. I was the first person that worked in laundry from that dorm. So they were like, "Here's what you do. You talk to the people that run, the washing machines in the laundry room. And you say, hey, my dorm's going to pay this much to get extra bleach in their whites. I've got a list of guys. You got to go around and tell guys, I got a service. You want your stuff bleached extra good? Like, because if you put your clothes in laundry, they come back smelling
brown.
Worse than you send them in.
Yeah, they come back brown. It's crazy.
It's weird. So people, that was a hustle. And for people that did get money in, they would pay you a little bit extra, if you threw their bag in the special wash that had the extra bleach, And so I got on that. And I was fortunate.
Chris Full game.
Yep, Chris Full game for your your visitation blues.
Yep.
You want the creases in them? Well, we got irons down there, so we can get that going for you too. Like,
That's one thing I never understood is the guys who got super dressed up for visitation. So you had these guys, they would prepare for like 2 or 3 days. It wasn't even a girl. It was like their aunt, and they would get that lined up fade haircut. They would get a crease in their pants, shiny new boots. They'd borrow people's shoes.
Yes.
Separate visitation shoes. And, I just kept thinking like, has your family ever gotten here and been like, man, I was really disappointed you're in prison, but God, look at you. I sure am proud of you now.
Shining in here. Maybe you should stick around. This looks good on you.
That never happened one time.
No. So yeah, that was the hustle there. That was at the main unit. And then they sent me to the work camp. And they put me, because my custody was low enough to get to the work camp, but I couldn't work outside the gate. I went right into laundry there. It was from, one laundry, because I knew the machines and everything by then. I'd been there for a year and a half, almost 2 years, working in this laundry room. So I did that, and I EOS from Madison. And
EOS is end of sentence.
Yep. End of sentence. And yeah, so I worked at the work camp and laundry there, and I had that hustle going, and then I worked outside the gate.
So you get home, and you make it through, and I would imagine like after Lake Butler and after juvenile, working in the laundry at Madison, you probably had it on cruise control at this point. Oh, yeah. In the last 6 months before you went home, and you're looking to go to work release, or you're looking to go home.
I did make it to work release.
At that point,
for like less than 6 months at the end of that sentence.
Did you have a plan?
No, I was sent to Lake City. I worked at Ken's Barbecue. I worked at Ken's Barbecue in Lake City. They sent me there. And for those who don't know, like when you go to work release, that's like it's all a moneymaker. They take 55% of your check. Everything that you make, they take 55% of it off rip, goes to them no matter what. Now, whether it be for fines, they say 10% of this is going to fines that you owe us, which is money for them, or cost of housing, or whatever it may be. And
food that you don't get,
food that you don't even get or eat, nothing. Like if 55% of your check goes to them, and then they give you 45%, and it goes into a draw. Now, out of that draw, you are allowed to take up to, I think it is $100 a week. I think that's your draw. It was $100 a week at the time. I think since then they've lowered it. I think they lowered it.
It's $6.75.
Yeah. But you're allowed to get $100 a week, and now here's the thing: is you're working, and you're working as much as you can because you don't want to be stuck at that work release center all day. You will, and that's another thing that a lot of these companies that hire guys that are in work release, they know I can call this guy any time of day and he's going to show up. He's not going to call in sick because he doesn't, it's like,
for bare minimum,
for nothing. So they'll give you a job and they'll hire you at the least amount that they can. And if you're cool enough to get a spot like I did, I worked for Ken's Barbecue.
Which, by the way, we commend businesses for hiring incarcerated individuals, but let's not kid ourselves. They're getting a tax break to hire you, and you're not getting any of that.
And the wage, because they know that you're going to take the job, the wage is also low. And I would say just to those companies, we do appreciate you guys hiring us. It means the world to us more than you know. But give us a fair shake. If we're working hard and we're the hardest working guy you've got, at least give us the fair bit. That's all. But anyways, moving along. I was hired at Ken's Barbecue, and I was lucky enough that they said, hey, we will pay you $8 an hour on the books, and we'll pay you another $2 off the books that we'll save for you. And I said, for every hour you work, you're still getting $2 an hour here, tax free. It'll be kept in the state. Corey Bannister was the owner at the time. Big shout out to Corey Bannister and Ken's Barbecue in Lake City. If you ever buy, go. It's great barbecue. Anyways.
Wait, are you doing plugs? Did you
I'm
just get paid for that?
Well, I'm going to try. I'm going to
Holy shit. The show's only like 4 episodes long. We're already getting sponsorships.
But and I was fortunate enough that I had almost 2,000 and change saved whenever I got out. But
so where'd you go?
My mom, because I had worked in, she was hitting me up for money while I was in work release. She was high on drugs. She had developed a very bad crack habit at the time. And so she had actually asked me to send her money, which I did. While I was there in work release, I was sending money to her. I got out. I had, like I said, almost $3,000, $2,000 and change, and within like 3 weeks, it was gone. She had hit me up, for rent money. I needed clothes. I had no clothes, nothing. I had to, buy outfits and stuff. And between, getting clothes and my mom hitting me up for loans or rent to stay at her place, it was gone. Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that when I was teaching classes in prison, I taught, mental health courses and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the thing that I really tried to have difficult discussions with guys going home was codependency. I think it's people talk about, well, find God, you'll be all right. Find a job, you'll be all right. Stay away from drugs and alcohol, you'll be all right. Get a GED, you'll be all right. The thing that we don't ever discuss that permeates our life at a very deep level, and it's sticky and messy and it's not black and white and there's no right answer, is codependency. People move back in with their mom, then their mom wants some money for rent. Obviously, she deserves it, but then you don't have any money to save to get out. Now you're stuck in this relationship. Nobody knows who borrowed what money from whom. Now take that idea and extrapolate it out to baby mamas, girlfriends, exes, bad relationships, people that supported you. Now you feel like you've been bought and paid for in a relationship at times. There's a lot of predatory people that will send you money or try to come visit you only so that you turn around and end up in a relationship with them. There's a lot of guys who play that side of it, that try to con people into relationships. And, I just want you to take maybe like the sort of 3,000 foot view here of, I know that it's a sticky situation. I know it's your mom. I know you love her, but that idea of codependency, do you think that may have been one of the traps that set you on a bad path?
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and start. Um, my very first time ever in trouble. I wasn't sent to a juvenile program, luckily, but I got arrested my eighth grade year um, because I had marijuana at school. Marijuana that my mom had given me. Um, and this is at Tuttle. No, not Tuttle. Macintosh. Macintosh in Sarasota, Florida. I was my very I never took any of the FCATs for you take them at the end of the eighth grade year. Never took any of them. Not one. They still passed me, just to get me out of high school. But that was marijuana that my mom had given me. When I got to high school, my mom was having me and my brother sell pot for her. She's dead. She passed away almost 2 years ago, and love my mom. Did she do the best that she could? Yes. Was the best she could.
That was your mom saying hello right there.
Was
she just knocked the mixer on the floor.
Was the best she could still shitty? Yes. I got a very, very skewed image of right and wrong because here's this person that has raised me from a child, but also everything that they're teaching me is fucking wrong. I'm upset, and you could ask my brother, the same. He would tell you, we were not raised right. Our view of things is tragically skewed because of the way that we were brought up, and
you feel like it's hard to find your footing.
Yeah, very much so. I am responsible for me now, but did I get a fair shake thus far? No. Has it affected me? Absolutely. But I am aware of this. I know this. And that's up to me to be extra diligent as far as the decisions I make and the reasons why I make them now, because I have to question the way that I view things. You know what I mean? Like morally,
your perspective is wrong.
Perspective
right.
is I feel like it was. I feel like it's better now. But it was the way that I viewed things. Everything was completely off based on the fact that the person that I trusted in to shape and mold and guide me in the right direction, and the things that I was taught are okay, weren't. And anyways, so to bring
Dana, I really appreciate your honesty there, and I think that we talked a little bit about before the show, and I think what we'll do is we're going to do a 2-part series here with Daniel. We're going to make this first episode everything that sort of led up to incarceration and that experience, and then when we'll come back for part 2 for Daniel, we'll do another hour on his experiences now that he's been home for an extended period of time, and I think that's the way to do it, because I want to dive deeper into. Daniel's been home now for 10 years successfully, and I want to dive deeper into some of the triumphs that he's had to have, but there's still a lot of stuff in there that comes up in
how I met you,
right. So do you think when you're saying that you look at it as, I don't want you to describe yourself as bad or wrong, but bad survival or shitty survival skills maybe, or when you're raised by somebody who's involved with an addict or who is an addict themselves, I would imagine that codependency, that sense of manipulation, and like, I got to get over on you before you get over on me.
Well, I was just getting to that. And I had gotten home and out of prison. Like I said, I was released with almost $3,000, and within before a month it was completely gone. I'm staying at my mom's house, who is a drug addict. She is working as a caretaker. I won't say the guy's name, and I have felt so bad about this, but my mom had me steal money from this guy, who she's supposed to be taking care of. And I was desperate at the time. This is my mom, you know what I mean? Now she had me sell drugs, and it's my mom, and I did, because I didn't want to lose where I was staying. I didn't, I was young and I was stupid, and I definitely shouldn't have done it. But I ended up taking money from this guy that she was supposed to be taking care of. She told me exactly where to go, how to take it, and it's just like, and that's what I mean when I say, like, the person that I was depending on to raise me and to guide me was guiding me to do these types of things, and I definitely should not have done that. But I don't think that I should have been, influenced too either. So, yeah, no, that's. I wanted to get to that because I knew where you were going. I could see exactly, and yes, there's that codependency, and it's boom. I'm your mom, and she relied on me to steal for her. So it's just rough. It's a very rough thing. I think I'm looking at it very raw now, and I've breezed over it, at least in my mind, recollecting. But now it's the first time I've really like picked it apart, and it's
Nice.
it's it's even worse than I thought it was.
Yeah.
It's just fucking sad, man.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping that this show is a healing, cathartic experience for people, and we have a chance to look deeper and more introspectively at ourselves and sort of the imperfections of us as humans. I mean, we are the protagonist and antagonist. We are the hero and anti-hero in all of our own stories, and so it's easy for a legislator or a senator or a lawyer or a judge to look at you and say, this is very black and white. You did a crime, you do the time. It's different when we're having this conversation on more complex levels. I love my mother, but also she did some horrible things that led, I take responsibility for my actions, but also I was influenced. You see that imperfection there? I think people want us to say all or the other, and it's just not. There's such a heavy mix, and so how are you supposed to survive and not feel like you're drowning? Daniel, how have your relationships been affected by this?
I've had a very, very hard time building, meaningful relationships with people. Not just women, even friends. I'll get to this point where, I think I even went through it with you, where I started to care for an individual, and that, Lee is my brother. I love him to death. He can't get rid of me now. Too bad, buddy. It's too late. But I mean, there was a point until I learned that there weren't people that had an agenda other than my well-being. I didn't have that, and it took a while to get comfortable with it. I would want to push them away, or run, because I felt like no matter what happened, I was gonna get let down or hurt. It was a difficult thing to get past for me. But luckily, I had people like you, Mac, Taisha Stevenson, my wonderful children. I'm very fortunate today. So,
we're glad to have you here,
Thanks,
Daniel.
man.
I really appreciate you joining us for this episode. Now, in episode 2, we'll try to get it up later this week.
Breaking the